Iwo Jima, March 1945. In the depths of the tunnel complex beneath Mount Suribachi, Private Takeshi Yamada wakes up to a rat gnawing on his leg. It's not the first time. He can barely move in the narrow 1.2-meter-wide passage where he has slept for weeks, surrounded by 15 other men in worsening conditions. The air is thick, hot, and humid, heavy with the smell of sweat, excrement, and the sick rot of gangrene. The only light comes from tallow candles that consume what little oxygen remains. Outside the tunnel, the continuous roar of explosions and the deadly hiss of American M2 flamethrowers echo off the volcanic rock walls. Yamada knows he can no longer escape. The exits are blocked or under direct fire. He is trapped in what the Americans call the labyrinth of death, an underground world where darkness is total, rats are constant companions, and the simple act of breathing is a struggle for survival. This is the hell of the Iwo Jima tunnels, and subterranean battlefield that tested the limits of human endurance like no other in World War II. General Tadamichi Kurabayashi didn't just build defenses on Iwo Jima, he transformed the entire island into an underground fortress. When he took command in June 1944, Kurabayashi immediately recognized that American air and naval superiority would make any traditional coastal defense useless. Instead, he ordered his men to dig into the island itself. For 8 months, 6,000 Japanese soldiers worked in 18-hour shifts, using pickaxes, shovels, and limited explosives to create a tunnel system that would eventually stretch for more than 11 miles. Some historians estimate as many as 18 miles. These tunnels weren't simple trenches, but a sophisticated network with up to 7 levels of depth, connecting more than 5,000 firing positions, hospitals, ammunition depots, and even a complete radio station. The engineering behind the tunnels was brilliant in its simplicity. Iwo Jima is composed mainly of soft volcanic rock, known as tuff, which is relatively easy to excavate but surprisingly stable. Japanese engineers designed the tunnels with frequent curves, avoiding straight lines that would allow Americans to throw grenades or shoot flames directly through long distances. The average diameter of the tunnels was just 1.2 meters, enough for one man to move, but not to allow Americans to use larger equipment. Captain Sunizo Wachi, Kurabayashi's staff officer, would later describe, "Every curve, every fork, every ramp was designed to maximize our defense and minimize the effectiveness of American weapons." For the Japanese soldiers living in these tunnels, the daily reality was a claustrophobic nightmare. The tunnels were dark, hot, and humid, with temperatures regularly exceeding 35 degrees Celsius and humidity levels nearing 100%. The stagnant air smelled of human sweat, excrement, burnt ammunition, and the constant rot of gangrene. Private Akira Tanaka, whose diary was recovered after the battle, wrote on March 10th, "The air is so thick that every breath is an effort. Sometimes we wake up at night feeling like we are suffocating, as if the island itself is swallowing us." Without proper ventilation, carbon dioxide accumulated, causing dizziness, nausea, and even loss of consciousness in extreme cases. The lack of basic hygiene created unsanitary conditions that quickly deteriorated. With limited water supplies, soldiers couldn't wash their bodies or uniforms. Private Shijuki Miura wrote, "Our uniforms are stiff with dried sweat and blood. The skin rots in contact with the filthy fabric. Men are developing ulcers and infections that won't heal." Without proper sanitary facilities, soldiers were forced to defecate in corners of the tunnels or in bags that had to be stored until they could be discreetly disposed of at night. The result was a constant smell of human waste mixed with the odor of burnt ammunition and gunpowder. Rats became an omnipresent and insidious presence. Iwo Jima had a native population of rats that thrived in the dark, hot tunnels. Without natural predators and with a constant supply of food scraps and human sweat, their population exploded. The diary of Japanese military doctor Captain Ryoichi Yoshioka documents, "The rats are now our constant companions. They gnaw on our feet while we sleep, eat our food, and worse, gnaw on the wounds of the injured men." Yesterday, a soldier woke up to find a rat trapped in his open wound. American testimonies confirm that upon entering the tunnels, they often found rats so large they could be mistaken for rabbits. Insects also thrived in the damp, hot conditions. Mosquitoes, despite the island's volcanic location, found stagnant pools of water to breed in. Private Kiyoshi Tamura wrote, "The mosquitoes are a constant torture. They bite us until we bleed, especially at night when we try to sleep. Some men have developed high fevers after the bites, and we have no medicine to relieve the itching or the fever." Besides mosquitoes, other insects like cockroaches and beetles multiplied, attracted by the heat, humidity, and food scraps. Food was scarce and of worsening quality. American naval blockades had prevented significant supplies from reaching the island since June 1944. When the battle began in February 1945, the garrison was already operating on reduced reserves. Captain Wache recorded in his diary, "Rations were calculated to last 3 months of siege, but we consumed them in 6 weeks due to the intensity of combat. Now we are reduced to a quarter of a rice cracker per man per day. Without proper refrigeration, the remaining food often rotted or became infested with pests." Private Tanaka wrote, "The rice crackers are moldy and full of larvae. Even so, we eat, because the hunger is worse than the disgust." The medical situation inside the tunnels was apocalyptic. Without proper antibiotics, even small cuts or wounds became dangerous. Captain Yoshioka documented, "Without penicillin or other antibiotics, we are powerless against infections. Gangrene spreads quickly in such unsanitary conditions. Today, I had to amputate a soldier's finger with a penknife and a bottle of sake for anesthesia. Without enough water for cleaning, infections spread among the soldiers." Private Miura wrote, "My tunnel mate died of fever yesterday. His body has been next to me for 2 days, waiting for us to remove it during the night. The fever is now in 3 other men." Physical and mental exhaustion became a combat force in itself. Soldiers worked in 18 to 20-hour shifts, with little sleep and less food. The extreme heat and high humidity caused them to sweat constantly, leading to extreme dehydration. Private Tamura wrote, "My lips are cracked and bleeding. I drink my water ration in minutes, but I still feel my throat scratching. Sometimes I dream of rain, of anything to relieve this dryness." Without natural light, many soldiers lost track of time, leading to sleep disorders and mental confusion. For the Americans entering the tunnels, the experience was equally terrifying, though for different reasons. The Marines, trained for open-field combat, found themselves in a completely alien and threatening environment. Sergeant Jim Lane, who participated in tunnel clearing, would describe, "It was like walking into hell. The hot, humid air hit us first, followed by the smell, sweat, excrement, burnt ammunition, and something worse, something rotten. Then, total darkness. You couldn't see your own hand in front of your face. The Marines had to advance backwards, with the point man using a flamethrower or throwing grenades ahead, knowing that any turn could hide a deadly ambush." Claustrophobia was a constant problem for the Americans. Lieutenant Robert Howard, who led several tunnel clearing operations, would write, "Many men simply couldn't handle the confined space. Some would panic and have to be dragged out. Others just stopped moving, paralyzed by fear." To cope, Marines developed specific tactics. They used ropes tied to their waists to be pulled back in an emergency and kept flashlights attached to their helmets, even though the light attracted enemy fire. The Japanese, on the other hand, used their intimate knowledge of the tunnels to their advantage. They created elaborate booby traps, false floors leading to deep pits, false walls hiding snipers, and even pulley systems to move large boulders that blocked passages. Private Tanaka wrote, "We know every curve, every fork. We can move in complete darkness, while the Americans stumble and hesitate. This is our advantage. We know this labyrinth like we know our own hands." The Japanese also used the tunnel system to move silently behind American lines, launching surprise attacks at night. The clearing of the tunnels by the Americans was a slow, dangerous, and grueling process known as cave cleaning. It involved throwing smoke grenades to force the Japanese out, followed by the use of M2 flamethrowers to burn out those who remained. Flamethrower operator Robert Sherrod would describe, "Every bunker was a battle in itself. You never knew how many were inside or if they were armed with grenades. It was a deadly lottery." Flamethrower operators had one of the shortest life expectancies on the battlefield, as they were priority targets for the Japanese defenders. The interaction between the two sides inside the tunnels created moments of unusual horror. Sergeant Lane would describe a particularly terrible experience. We found a tunnel where the Japanese had blocked the passage with the bodies of their own dead. They had been rotting for days, and rats were everywhere. We had to cut through those bodies to advance, with rats running over our legs. Other reports document cases of American soldiers finding Japanese prisoners who had been tied up and abandoned by their own comrades, often with limbs amputated to serve as emergency food. The sound inside the tunnels created a unique and terrifying sensory experience. The constant echo transformed every sound into something larger than it was. Lieutenant Howard would write, "You'd hear a sound, but you didn't know where it came from or how far away it was. A sigh could sound like a scream, a drop of water like a grenade. It was like living in an auditory nightmare where you never knew what was real." The Japanese exploited this, sometimes banging on cans or making noises to lure Americans into ambushes. The lack of natural light created profound psychological problems for both sides. With no reference to day or night, many soldiers lost all sense of time. Private Miura wrote, "I don't know how many days we've been here. I just count the meals, but even that is hard when food is so scarce." For the Americans, the total darkness was particularly terrifying. Sergeant Lane would describe, "The darkness in the tunnels is different from any darkness you've ever known. It's not just the absence of light, it's a darkness that seems to have substance, that presses on your eyes. You could stretch out your hand and touch the darkness." The constant humidity created additional problems. Electrical equipment failed regularly, weapons jammed, flashlights stopped working. Sergeant Lane would write, "The humidity was so intense that our weapons were always covered in condensation. We had to clean our rifles every few hours or they'd stop working. It was like fighting an invisible enemy that was everywhere." The experience in the Iwo Jima tunnels had a profound psychological impact on everyone who went through it. For the Japanese, it represented a slow descent into hell, with conditions worsening daily. For the Americans, it represented a confrontation with a completely alien and threatening environment. Lieutenant Howard would summarize, "Nothing in our training prepared us for this. It was a different kind of war, a primitive war fought in the womb of the earth." When the battle ended on March 26, 1945, the tunnels of Iwo Jima remained as a testament to the horror of modern warfare. Of the approximately 21,000 Japanese defenders, only 216 were taken prisoner during the 36 days of active combat. Most of the survivors were found hiding in the tunnels, many in terrible physical and mental condition. Major General Grave B. Erskine, commander of the 3rd Marine Division, would later observe, "I have never seen such brutal conditions. The tunnels were a world of their own, an underground hell that tested the limits of human endurance." 75 years later, the tunnels of Iwo Jima remain virtually unchanged, a dark and silent network that echoes with the memories of those who fought and died inside. The rats still inhabit the tunnels, as do the mosquitoes and the constant humidity. For the veterans who survived, the memories of the tunnels remain vivid: the total darkness, the smell of sweat and excrement, the constant sound of gnawing rats. Sergeant Lane, decades later, still woke up with nightmares of the tunnels. "Even now, I can feel that darkness, that smell. It's as if a part of me is still there, trapped in that eternal darkness." The deepest lesson of the Iwo Jima tunnels is that even in the most technologically advanced warfare, basic human resilience remains the most critical factor of all. The battle was won not just by numerical or technological superiority, but by the ability of ordinary men to endure extreme conditions that tested their physical and mental limits to the extreme. It is an eternal reminder that even in the deepest darkness, human courage can find a way to persist.